What's going on, everybody? Another week, another Burning the Red Shirt podcast. Andrew and myself here to talk college fantasy football, maybe some gambling. Of course, Andrew is, I think, in the recent episode, has discussed how he has kind of dipped his toes in the win total pool. So, looking forward to it. What's going on, man? Are you digging deep into those bets at this point?
Can you hear the birds chirping at my house?
No birds chirping. This is not Burning the Red Shirt from last summer when I was outside doing podcasts.
Well, I've got the window open and it's a beautiful day, so the birds are gracing me with their chirping presence. But yeah, I mean, I've started betting on stuff. Some of it is fairly quantitatively or qualitatively based. Some of it's just kind of being bored and looking to fire on stuff while we wait for hopefully some season-long props to start getting released soon. Last year, around this time, like in this week or the week before, we got some FanDuel props, and then right at the end of May when we did it was the day we did our show with No Context. We got a ton of season-long props at Bet Rivers and all those Jason Copycat books. So that was an awesome day. That was, I think, May 30th. So got to have your eyes open at this point, hoping that stuff starts to come down, hopefully. But nothing yet. So because of that, I'm itching. I'm ready to go. I've started really diving into research as well. I spent a ton of time this past week kind of just going to Google News and searching for the word depth chart and going back as far as it would let me, sifting through all the NFL garbage and looking to try and find out just from different outlets that sourced or depth charts or just put out their own ideas kind of. So I got about 20 of them that way. So that felt good. I always prefer to do primary research myself as opposed to just kind of get all the team's depth charts dropped to me from an individual source, just because that's how I learn, that's how I process, that's how I kind of commit it to memory, and start to kind of, I don't know, ETL it on a personal level, if you will. So I've been doing a lot of that the past week or two. So been busy. And the only way I've been really able to action on it though is just the best ball drafts that we've been doing and just doing some win total, conference future type stuff.
I like how you add in because I'm bored, just to help kind of buy you an excuse if you bet just some absolutely horrible line. I think I'd like to talk a little bit about which ones specifically you've bet. But before, I'll set the stage a little bit. A little bit later, I want to talk about just busts in the college fantasy football draft space. So higher drafted guys that you think could be easily tanked, their season just go to hell, and for legitimate reasons, not for injury reasons, unless you're Jalen Daniels. This was a good idea brought to me by Mike Bainbridge from CFF site. So the one time I'll ever say anything nice to you. Thank you, Mike, for that.
They just did a version of that right for the Fantasy Points pod. That was a good episode. I enjoyed that one.
I've liked the undervalued and overvalued. I want to focus a little bit more on the high price guys. They kind of spread the wealth around in terms of the draft picks. So similar idea, of course.
Okay.
But
yeah.
Slightly different. But at this point in the season, we have to take what we can get. So Andrew, what is your most confident win total bet as we speak?
So we talked about, it's the only one that we've talked about here, and it remains Washington under 7.5. Frochan on the bust episode that they did for Fantasy Boys kind of laid out more articulately than I have, I believe. Reasons why I'm low on Washington. I think it makes a lot of sense that they would have a tough time getting to 8 wins right now. So if you pull up lots of different sports books that have win totals up FanDuel's the only one with G5, and they only have AAC and Mountain West. We'll get into that in a little bit as well, because I have a little bit of going on there. But most books have Power 5. I'm gonna continue to call it Power 5. I think I'm not ready to move on. But yeah, most books have a Power 5, and there's generally not that much of a discrepancy from book to book. A lot of them source their stuff from the same place initially, and then I think a lot of them also continue to move based on the same kind of action and information. But some at the same time, like some books may source their win totals from the same place, but then they move off action differently based on what they receive. But generally speaking, like you don't see that huge discrepancies from book to book. Like you won't see or at least I don't see like a win difference. You might see juice differences, but Washington, you actually you can see a pretty decent difference. DraftKings, BetRivers, they both have Washington at 7 wins at even money. And then Caesars has 7.5 wins at pretty much even money. It's like -120, -110 one way. And then FanDuel has Washington at 7.5, juice to like -135 on the under. So does ESPN. So like that half win difference is like, based on like just kind of scanning around right now, like that's pretty significant. Like a full half win difference, basically. We're not talking about like a half win where one side is juiced heavily and one down, and then the other book is juiced heavily up. It's not like that. Like, so that's interesting to me. Like, but I have the most action on Washington under 7.5 right now. It's the most confident thing that I feel.
Yeah, Frotan did a good job talking about it on one of those podcasts, Fantasy Points podcast. And I hadn't listened to it yet. I usually listen to whatever podcast comes out. I listen to it like 2 or 3 days late. Yeah, and I did a CFF toughest toughest schedule article, and they were on it. And then he talked about it, and I listened to it, and I was like, wow, this is exactly like it's going to sound like I'm stealing from him, because we make the same points. The bye week placement, the opponents they face, the fact that like it's a whole new staff, a whole new roster. Like if you just look at their offensive line returning production, I'm looking at this from CFP Winning Edge, and it's like 2 transfer ins and 2 other guys that have gotten snaps, and everybody else has graduated or transferred out. It's like insane. And that's like a place that I feel like you can't be thin at. Like you can't have like a completely brand new offensive line and that work day one, especially with like Will Rogers as your quarterback,
right?
With like no true superstar at a skill player. Like this offense could be really, really rough.
For sure. And so what I'm about to say is definitely injecting personal bias, but just seeing how it played out at Arizona. I don't really like Jedd Fisch on like a human being level. But so he is all about access journalism, like the idea, like he's going to let all the major news outlets, all the national outlets kind of come in. He'll schmooze them. He'll give them information, give them access and stuff like that. And they're going to write really nice things about his school. They did it at Arizona. He did it at Arizona very early on, and kind of built a lot of momentum through the media. It feels like he's kind of doing the same thing in Washington. Like I see, like they're getting like rave reviews for the guys they're bringing in via the portal and their portal grades and stuff like that. Like that one of their O-line transfers got processed at Ohio State and when it barely ever got into games, and when he did, he sucked. Another guy's from Portland State. Like,
it's not good.
Like, cool, you brought in a shiny receiver too, or whatever. I think it's a very uphill battle. I don't know. I feel really good about under 7.5.
Wasn't there a receiver that was looking at Washington from the portal? That's Franklin, Zachary Franklin.
Oh yeah. Badger was too, but yeah, you're right. Franklin just went there. He went to Illinois as well, but yeah, they said that there was reports that he was visiting Washington like this week.
The obvious choice would be we want him to go to Illinois, right?
Do you want him taking targets from your boy Pat Bryant?
I hate to break it to you, Andrew. I've pumped and dumped Pat Bryant.
Did you?
No, well, maybe inadvertently.
I was thinking about getting in. You did a good pump.
I like Pat Bryant. I think there's a decent floor, and I think your boy Altmaier's there. I think like they're going to be good enough, and like they chucked it around towards the end of the year, so I do like him. I don't know if he's definitely not the mold to replace Isaiah Williams, but I don't know if anybody's going to. Zachary Franklin's kind of close to that mold, but is he like the Jalen Daniels type where he gets like banged up and then he comes back and he's just like a shell of himself? So I would rather him go there because he's going to if he goes to Washington, I think Jeremiah Hunter and Denzel Boston are in trouble because that offense is going to be bad anyways. Like,
yeah.
And I don't think it gets better by adding more receivers.
Oh, so they, yeah, no, I agree. I think that like the shiny, like bringing in the shiny receiver toys or whatever, like that's not gonna move the needle from like a win total, like win probability perspective. So another underrated thing with Washington. So I don't know. Am I off base to kind of thinking that like Will Rogers is kind of made of glass?
I don't remember I don't remember him being hurt too much. I know he missed I think he missed a couple games in that one season post Leach. And
I feel like he's always banged up, but I might be making that up.
I think didn't the family come out and like just crap on the head coach and basically kind of came out like, I don't know. Maybe I'm remembering it wrong, but it felt like they kind of were like, he treated us wrong. He did me horribly with my health or something. I don't remember exactly, but they obviously did not like him.
Yeah. I mean, he's got two 600 attempt seasons on his resume with Leach, right? So maybe
that's like wrong playing 6 games for Mike
exactly,
Leach.
Yeah. So I don't think I'm right, but what they said about the coaching staff was that they lied about like the system they were going to run to him.
Yeah, that was a lot of it for sure.
Oh,
to wrap up Pat Bryant real quick.
Yeah.
It's not that I'm pumping and dumping Pat Bryant. It's that and maybe at some point we can have this conversation of like ownership rates, like how much you have. Like I'm trying to think of all these 12 drafts. I don't want to have too much of one guy in any draft. Like I was looking at my drafts from last year, and it felt like I had a lot of the same guys, and they just didn't hit because they got hurt or because they just sucked or because I read the situation wrong. And so I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to try to go a little bit more upside and I'm going to spread it around. So like, I do like Pat Bryant theoretically, but because he could have like a huge target share, but I don't want to go too heavy in on him because it's almost like a coin flip, right? At best, I don't think we could even say 50-50 that he gets 100 targets. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm trying to pick and choose my players at the last 10 rounds of the draft of high upside and then just kind of spread them around and try to fit some together. It's kind of like building a DFS lineup, right? Like I want to have some resemblance of a core, and then I want to throw in some random guys that I like to fill out the rest of the roster.
Totally. Especially with the later rounds, I think probably makes sense. Let me retract where I was going with the Will Rogers made of glass thing. So I don't know. He doesn't strike me as like the sturdiest built person. And playing behind that O-line, let's just say he gets banged up. They're screwed. That dude. So they lost the one guy to UCLA. The two guys have like the same name. So I'm looking up my depth chart now to make sure I don't. So they lost Demarcus Davis to UCLA, but they have Demon Williams, who's like a highly recruit. That I can't remember if that guy's a true freshman or redshirt freshman, but
true freshman. I think there's been some nice hype about him,
but he can't throw right now.
I was just gonna say he is about as raw. It seems like he's as raw as it gets. Can't throw for anything, but like if they just get him in a good offensive system that can like kind of flesh out some of that badness. He's young. I mean, it's not easy to throw a football when you're 18, right? There's a lot that goes into it.
Right, but that's not what you want at QB2.
No, that's not at all.
Yeah, like that's an awesome QB3. You want him to be QB3 his freshman year. It's a problem that he's QB2, I think.
Yeah, I mean that is I think early on in the offseason you said I want to like look at teams where if one player gets hurt, like
Yeah,
all hell could
that's where I
break
was going
loose.
with this. Yeah.
And this fits exactly that mold. Like there is a chance that Williams is like true freshman, great, but I don't, the schedule doesn't help. If he, like Rayner for Arkansas State, like he kind of popped up out of nowhere and had some really great games, but the schedule was much different, right? Like it just is not likely at all that
Yeah.
he's going to come in at post injury and be as good as people think down the road he'll be. I do love him. I do love the idea of him though in supplemental drafts. That's a guy that I feel like you would be totally cool with sitting a year and then then he'll become like a fantasy star.
Mm-hmm. I decided I think that topic is going to be the article that I put out near the end of the summer for Kyle's website, Brandon Chick, and a few schools that are like, if the QB goes down, they're just totally fucked.
I like that. It's a good idea.
Yeah.
What you brought up, bets that you've made bored. What's one that you made while being bored this offseason?
Yeah. So I do you listen to the Hit the Books podcast? Do you know what it is?
Nope.
Okay. It's under the umbrella of like the Hammer HQ. It's like a betting content site. Think of it as like Action, but whatever, a different company. So it's Knish, Joey Knish, and that dude Brad Powers.
I know
so it's entertaining. I mean, Knish is a lunatic, right? So, and then like you've got Brad and like trying to reel him in kind of and keep the train on the track. So it's fun, and they're both super knowledgeable about CFB. So, so I tailed them on some stuff that I qualify that as board. I tailed them on Minnesota over 4.5 wins and Florida under 5.5. I listen to their shit usually like a day or two late, and they move everything as soon as they fucking talk about it. But those I paid more juice when I bet the stuff I tailed them on, but those numbers are like totally gone now. Like Florida's now 4.5 and Minnesota's 5.5. So I feel pretty good about that, especially with
over on Minnesota. You said,
yeah.
Okay, let's do it. Let's look at the schedule real quick. So they have a nice Thursday night game to start the season against UNC. How do you feel about that one? New quarterback for both teams.
I'm part of I haven't looked into like what UNC's win total is, but I'm down on them this year. I think that they're not going to be good. I don't believe in Max Johnson. I think that Omar, if we get like Omari and Hampton's, like as soon as season long props come out, like looking for his number and seeing if it's a big fat number is like one of the first things I want to do. Like if there's like a 1,300 out there, I want the under on that.
So that is by the way, 7.5 is their number.
Yeah,
at minus 110.
True. I haven't looked like its schedule or anything, but I don't know. I don't get good vibes.
We can call that a coin flip. To probably not going to win. It's at Minnesota, which is nice, but it's not the winner. That sucks. But we'll keep it in the back of our heads. They play Rhode Island at home, win. Nevada at home, win. They play Iowa at home. I don't think
coin flip.
I don't.
They beat him last year. That was the game where Cooper DeJean with the punt return.
Oh yeah, yes, of course. How could you? What a great non-play. At Michigan, you can't count that. So they're still at 2 wins with 2 coin flips. We'll say USC at home.
I don't know.
I don't think so. At UCLA, I mean, I wish the UCLA game was at home because I think I'd feel better about that one for you. Yeah. But on the road, you never know. But I don't know. They could be a hot mess. What do they really have?
Yeah.
So maybe a coin flip there. Maryland, that's pretty good. I
don't really buy into Maryland.
I'm not liking what they're doing. At Illinois.
So the way I felt like I didn't totally blindly tail like the way that those guys explained it, and then like when I was looking at it more, you go up and down the schedule. There's some auto wins, right? And then there's lots of like, okay, between like probably 40-45% and like 50-55-60% on the schedule. Probably not going to lose all those coin flips. And then you like, I don't know, you play the fractional win share game. It's pretty easy to get above 4.5, I think.
So you said you got it at over 4.5?
Yeah.
So basically you're counting Rhode Island and Nevada, 2 wins. And then you have to find 3 wins between Rutgers, Illinois, Maryland, UCLA, North Carolina, maybe consider USC. I would consider Iowa and Michigan as losses. Penn State's a loss to me.
Right.
But late in the season, and then at Wisconsin, which I think is a loss too. So not 5.5 is a bad number. I wouldn't touch the 5 over
right.
5.
I agree.
That feels like an automatic loss to me.
Yeah. I think they could go bowling, but I wouldn't bet it.
I would like it for bowl season props, but I would not like it for anything else. So who was the other team you said you bet? Under Florida, right? Yeah, we don't need to get into Florida's schedule. It's insane.
Yeah, it's great.
It's just absolutely insane.
And then, so I tailed them on Arizona too. At under 8.5 wins, like 9 wins feels like a lot to ask. But then too, I played of my own accord. I found the last, which is now gone, Texas Tech under 8.5. Just 9 wins.
That Morton news.
Yeah, with the Morton sketchiness. Did you see? So I thought, and this is like something that I found when I was doing depth chart searching. Like I assumed that QB2 was that dude Jake Strong, who came in last year and kind of sucked. QB3 Hammond, the freshman who seems like he's a rock star down the line. That's not the case. Do you know this?
I don't. I was agreeing with you. I think that's what I would have assumed, right? Strong and
then
the
this
freshman.
Is like, if Morton's not healthy, they're totally fucked, dude. So apparently the guy who won the QB2 job is a transfer from West Georgia, a Division II school, who threw for 900 yards last year and rushed for 400. And McGuire, the head coach, like comped him to. He was like, yeah, he did a lot of things that when Avery Johnson got in the game against us and ran for 5 touchdowns, it kind of reminded me like that. So like he's the QB2.
I was gonna say, I feel like that's closer to my neck of the woods. I almost feel like they do like a triple option type offense.
Oh yeah, it doesn't feel promising.
Which is not, which is not great. It's even makes it even worse, right? If that's your QB2.
Yeah. Like if Morton, when it doesn't work out for Morton, like this doesn't feel like it's trending in the right direction. Like you are not going to be able to run your offense, or either that, or you're going to be spending a material part of your offseason running a second offense, I guess, because like they're not going to run like anything representative of like a Kitley offense with this guy.
Yeah, I mean that doesn't feel like a situation where you're gonna.
It's not Jordan Brown either. I got his name wrong. Hold on.
Cameron Brown.
Cameron Brown. Jordan Brown's the receiver.
Played 9 games, 82 completions on 151 attempts, 914 yards. It looks like they split time, him and another guy. Even better for Texas Tech.
QB2 for a Big 12 team.
Yeah. You know what West Georgia's, or I shouldn't say infamous, what they're famous for athletically? Yeah. Their cheerleading team. Their cheerleading team is like incredible. They have a cheerleading outfit in the College Football Hall of Fame, which maybe you'll visit in the near future. All right, so you mentioned a couple things I think we should...
Are there 4 directional Georges? Because we ran
there's not.
We ran a race at North Georgia when we were down there for a couple years in a row. The Muddy Duck Dash. It's like a kind of a like Tough Muddery type thing, except easy. So is there no South Georgia? Well, there's Georgia Southern. What about East?
There's no East. I think East Georgia's considered University of Georgia. I mean, that is East Atlanta, way out there. Yeah. There's West Georgia. There's Georgia College and State. They had to get fancy with the name, but no, there's no South Georgia. I mean, if there's no South Georgia that's larger than 2,000 people, let's say. You drive up and down 75, you see the weirdest random technical colleges and stuff, but yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So you mentioned a few things that I think lead right into the bust-worthy conversation.
Hold on. Do you want my last win total?
I do not. No.
Okay.
Tell us the last win total. Let's hear it.
So I got it at minus 142. I was thinking about going back for more because it feels really good. But now it's minus 162, so I'm a little hesitant. Hawaii over 4.5. So even considering that they only played 12 games initially, I thought they played 13 when I was trying to figure out if I wanted to bet this. They get 2 FCS teams, neither of which are great. They get Nevada at home, they get New Mexico at home, and they go to Sam Houston State. Like that's 5 right there. And then you've got at least a few other games where it's like either they're on the road at a team that isn't awesome, or they play a better-ish team on the island. And I feel like they always steal a game or two on the island every year that they shouldn't.
Yeah, against like a Mountain West team that just something happens, weird scheduling for them or something, the other team, and then they're playing a short week or something, right?
Yeah.
So college fantasy butts, pivoting a little bit here. You mentioned Omarion Hampton. That's one of the guys that I thought would be an interesting quick discussion at the very least. You said if you get a big number on a prop on his rushing total, you like his under.
I do.
Tell me why.
I think that the offense is like, it's not copy paste this year, just in terms of like quality, how they'll be able to produce in totality. May being gone is huge. Good job, guys. You went out and got Max Johnson, who's kind of failed every chance he's had. And it doesn't even sound like he went and like really snagged the job this spring, right? But, I don't know if I should feel anyway about Jacoby Criswell coming in. I've had a soft spot for the guy, but he looked awful when he actually got into games at Arkansas last year. But it sounds like they're still figuring out things going into fall camp. Turnover at a bunch of different positions, right? Like it just feels to me like that offense isn't going to be an efficient machine. You could I think, okay, fine. Like there's the argument that they're losing talent at QB and wide receiver. They'll funnel more work to Hampton. I'm more likely to believe, okay, that like they might love to do that, but is it going to work, or is the offense just going to suck? And I think we've seen Hampton's peak from a production perspective. I think that when May buoyed that offense and allowed it to operate at the level that it did, and now everyone kind of suffers with him, Devontae Walker being gone, and just a less efficient machine on the whole.
Yeah, I think for reference, he had 253 carries for 1,504 yards last year. My concern with him would be like, in terms of like him being a bust or not busting, is that like they could legitimately just give him the ball 250 times again. Like, and it's not that crazy. You look, he had games of 9 carries, 13 carries, 13 carries. He did have absolutely insane carry numbers, like 26 against App and 24 against Miami, 29 against Georgia Tech, 31 against Duke. So you wonder, is he going to average over 20 carries a game? That does also include the bowl game, 62 yards in the bowl game. So I think the offense could be bad. So from a fantasy perspective, I don't have much of him because it might be a touchdown thing for me more than it is a yard thing. But he does feel like he have a decent floor, just because I think they'll lean on him a good bit. Just a matter of like, how efficient will they be? Maybe teams stack the box. He's not in my list of guys that I want at the first round, because there's just other running backs that are really appealing that don't have the same type of bustability. What about Darius Taylor? Goes with your Minnesota conversation. Is there any concern there?
Yeah. I've drafted him a lot. I'll probably draft him more just because ceiling that is number one overall player. I think to get to something in that range, right, it's just kind of stay healthy. And I don't really think that them bringing in a bunch of transfers from G5 or Marcus Major is that much of a tell, so much as there just really wasn't a lot of depth there. But it is concerning that he couldn't even make it through the spring healthy. Dude got hurt again.
I think you're right. You nail it there. I think the depth thing is a response to how things shook out last year, and how guys, Mo Ibrahim tore his Achilles and then played a full season running 30 times a game. What's his name, knows that he's not going to get that same type of reliability. So he sees in 2023 that there's guys that are getting hurt. And then we get to a point where we do see Darius Taylor, which a lot of us didn't think was going to happen. So he's going into it thinking, okay, I have to have actual players on my bench in case that does happen again.
The way I think that I tend to navigate injuries and injury concern in aggregate is I am skeptical of guys like recovering from injury from the prior year, like torn ACL and stuff like that. Like that's enough reason for me to stay away. But I'm not really I'm not going to just shy away from a guy because he's got like an injury prone label. I think those things are distinct and different, but I think that like, unless if you're coming off a season ending injury, like Mitchell Evans or whatever, okay, that gives me pause. Because we've seen how that's played out so many times. And I think you're right to be skeptical if like a guy rips his knee apart in November, like, is this going to leak into the current year? I think that's different than like you pull a hamstring in September or whatever, right? And maybe you miss another game with like, I don't know, a bruised shoulder in November. These short-term injuries. Now you slap an injury prone tag on someone like that. I don't really care about it. I think that a lot of that's just noise and bullshit and all like it'll bite you sometimes, right? Some of these guys truly are like their bodies are made of glass or whatever, but that I'm fine taking those risks.
Yeah, I think the injury prone stuff, I think we learn more and more about it. It's all hindsight, right? Like, oh, I should have known Jordan Tyson was never going to play it down, right? Like, but that Cam Rising was the most obvious of all of them, right? You can't tear your ACL on January 1 and think that you're going to play quarterback, right? Like, so I think we as a community are getting a little bit smarter about it. Like, I think there's certainly a difference between Mitchell Evans, who tore his ACL and his MCL and is not even like running at this point. Like, there's a difference between, I shouldn't say he's not running, but he's not ready at all, right? At this point, to not draft him compared to these nicks and dings. Darius Taylor stuff is interesting because he did have, miss a good bit of time. And then, like you said, spring, in the spring gets hurt. But I think ultimately the ceiling is just so high, right? Like, I think we were kind of right to fit, like, not draft Mo Ibrahim that high that 1 year after the Achilles. But man, like, the ceiling was so high, we should have said, "Hey, like this guy can't get out of the 5th round."
He won me the now defunct. Do you remember those Roto World leagues that Proton ran? Those things were awesome.
Proton, if you're listening, bring them back. The P5G5
bring back the Roto World leagues, please. But I had him in Charbonnet, and nothing else really mattered.
Yeah, at that point, you're good.
Nuclear.
Yeah,
it was great.
Good. All right, another running back I was thinking of that I have drafted 0 of, Ishmael Mahdi, Texas State. Do you have any of him? No. And if so?
No, I don't. I mean, you can imagine easily enough how that could come back to bite you. The offense can be explosive. He's explosive. He's touches the ball tons of different ways. But they go 5 deep at running back, and I think that they're going to kind of try and just keep guys fresh, utilize them in different ways and different roles. And I think that he's just going to get less volume this year. And in round 2, like, it's enough for me to say no, thank you.
Yeah, I'm not touching that. I think the depth of the offense is too good overall, especially the running back group. Like, I don't think Deion Hankins and Torrance Burgess are that great, but they averaged 5 yards of carry last year, which is shocking to even think that.
Apparently, so they I don't know if it's how would you interpret this? I listened to the Win Now and Get Bad podcast that the dude Kev Ciardella puts out. He finally put one out after not doing one for like 3 months. He's like us, I guess. So I listened to he did one basically talking about his depth chart projection. So I wanted to listen and be like, and see if he gave any actual reason for why he doesn't have Joey Hobart in slot. He didn't. No, he didn't like back it up with anything really. I wanted to hear him say like, and acknowledge like this dude played 100% in the slot last year. This is why I now have him projected outside. And there was nothing along those lines, but he did mention when he was talking about the running backs, he kind of mentioned similar things, like thoughts that we have, like Lincoln Party's coming back, like he's going to have a role. Jalen Jenkins looked really good in the spring. He mentioned the two UTEP guys coming over. Apparently, I think their the UTEP running back coach is now at Texas State, so maybe presumably he pulled them over. How would you interpret that? In terms of, would that change anything for you?
In terms of not liking Madi more. I mean, I take that as I think Madi is a great fantasy running back. I don't know if he's second round or even third round good, considering the other options. I get more pause from the fact that the UTEP running back coach is there and they got both of them. They obviously, if that is the case, then he obviously liked those two running backs. The running backs liked the coach. There's some sort of conversation or agreement of, hey, at least you'll be in the competition, right? These are fifth-year guys. They're not guys that are sophomores waiting to go, right? So I don't like that at all for Madi. And even if you say, okay, well, Madi is the guy, he'll give some of his carries up to those two. That's fine. Nothing crazy. This offense, I think, could just be super dynamic through the air. And there could be drives where he gets 2 carries for 12 yards and then they go 70 yards on 5 completions and it's a touchdown, right? McLeod being so good with that group of receivers makes me really concerned because I think Madi would have to have a crazy touchdown share. And he'd have to he's a smaller running back, right? And he'd then have to have those touchdowns around the goal line, which Burgess and Hankins are just more people that could make things muddier.
Yeah. I think I left it open-ended because I think you could interpret the running back coach thing there either way. You could interpret it as being he's bringing them over, they're probably getting a role. Or I think you could interpret it as also oh, we wanted running back depth. Let's use this connection to just bring in this depth. And there's really no promise of playing time there. I don't know. I think you can interpret it every day. I thought either way, I thought it was just interesting and noteworthy.
It's certainly possible. It's certainly possible they just want depth like Minnesota.
I've bet 3 teams to make the playoffs so far. Texas State at 14-1.
Yeah.
USF, which at 60-1. It's obviously not happening because they play Alabama and Miami.
They could beat Miami though. 12-1 USF with a loss to Bama if it's not 50-0.
Right. And then I bet Utah. It seems like every single smart person is on Utah this year. So I have a bunch of conference future parlays where I've been getting a lot of free bets. And I'll usually take the free bet and I'll parlay Georgia SEC with Ohio State or Oregon and a Big 12 team. And so I have a lot of Utah in that, and then I have Utah to make the playoff. So those are my playoff bets so far.
The Utah one is new. I don't believe we've spoken about that one.
Yeah, I made it yesterday.
That would make sense. It's the return of Cam Rising. I like it. Yeah. I like Keithy. I want to ask about one other guy real quick before we maybe pivot again. Where do you stand on Thomas Castellanos?
A little scared about Bill O'Brien being hard-headed relative to his system. I tailed. This is not answering your question at all. I've tailed our boy Ethan Sowers a little bit on the nugget he's found with Kamari Morales likely having an active role in their offense. With O'Brien always using a tight end. When I'm desperate at the end of a draft for a tight end 3 or 4, feels fine to me, just from a system play. So I've taken a little bit of that, but I don't know. The cost isn't terrible, right? Everyone kind of feels the same way. If I forgot that scumbag Jeff Hafley bailed on them for the NFL. Yep. It would have been so nice to copy paste Boston College back half of last year into this year for a few different reasons, right? Castellanos was totally unlocked. If it was status quo, he would be going top 3 rounds, right?
Yes. I think the concern with him is that Bill O'Brien is going to just neuter the offense. He definitely needs to run the football. He's going to throw for at the very best 200 yards per game. Even with like, I think their receiver group is decent. Like for a college group, it's solid enough.
Yeah.
But like he's just not a thrower, and so you have to be concerned about like what is actually going to happen.
He is way better as a thrower than I initially thought, but still, like that's not his strength. What was I gonna say? Give me 1 second.
One thing to note, real quick. One thing to note is Will Lawing is the offensive coordinator and the tight ends coach, and he has literally followed Bill O'Brien around like a little puppy everywhere. I mean, literally, he was a GA at Penn State. He was with the Texans for like 6 years. He was with Bama the year that Bill O'Brien was there. He was with the Patriots last year, and now he's at Boston College. So I don't think we can gain anything from him being the offensive coordinator. It's except for maybe it's not good, right? Like if you've only followed Bill O'Brien around, like you probably want to do what Bill O'Brien does.
Yeah.
What did Bill O'Brien do at Penn State, like with his quarterbacks?
It was like McGloin and Hackenberg, right?
Well, that's not fair. Hackenberg was never going to run the football.
Yeah. What week do we see Grayson James?
I hope 0 weeks.
I do too, but I don't know.
I have Castellanos in 4 of 6 Champ Series drafts.
Nice.
It's just okay. So I didn't really want to take him this past draft, but man, this in the 8th round there were so many quarterbacks taken. Castellanos is going at this point around QB 17. Is that too high, too low, just right?
It's fine. And like where that's right, like in that huge tier, right? What would you say it starts at? Like QB like 5 to like 20? They're like all kind of the same.
I am starting to think that there is a difference between. I think there's a clear top 6 or 7 now. I think Dart has certainly put his stamp on like being that next guy after Gabriel McLeod. And then it's really, I guess at that point, then yeah, you're right. QB 6 to QB 20 gets a little murky. It's just a preference thing. Yeah. Like Garrett Green to me should be being picked before some of these guys that are getting picked.
I know. I haven't drafted him yet. That he's one that's like, fuck. Like I'm scared that I don't have any of him in best ball yet. I have another guy too that I'm really like. I wish I had drafted a couple times in that tier. I'll give you him in a second. But do you have anyone in that range that you haven't drafted? Anyone you haven't drafted in any drafts that you wish you had taken some of?
Probably Avery Johnson.
Yeah,
is my guess. And I have I talked up drones, but everybody keeps picking them before I can pick them. I have him in 2 of 6, so I don't feel bad about it. But yeah, I would say probably Avery Johnson would be that because his ceiling, and this is kind of like for me and Castellanos, like the ceiling it could be so high.
All those guys, it's kind of like that.
It's insane. Avery Johnson to me could be QB1, or he could, be Garrett Green from 2 years ago, where he gets hurt in like the 3rd game and like is always hurt.
Nico, it's like that too. The one that I don't know. I always end up like lighting more money on fire on Chandler Morris, so I don't take any of them, this guy. But like I wish I had drafted Jackson Arnold. Maybe I'll get him in some drafts because I don't think there's like really much of a chance he's not good, and I think there's a decent chance that he's amazing, especially with Luttrell running that offense. It's like I don't really understand. It seems like people generally are pretty low on them this year. I don't know the argument inside and out for why. Outside of
the offensive line, the offensive line is supposed to be just, at least in terms of Oklahoma's sake, the worst it's had in forever.
Okay, that's understandable. Why?
Well, a lot of guys go to the draft, guys transfer out. You just don't replenish fast enough. It's kind of like the Auburn thing. Like Auburn has been so bad at recruiting offensive linemen, and then all it takes is 1 or 2 guys to go to the draft and 1 guy to leave, and all of a sudden you're just completely barren at the position.
Totally.
Where do you stand on Grayson McCall? He has crept into that tier. I
Dude,
think
he
it was
went
one
like
of those.
6th round in our draft just now.
He went 802. I took Castellanos right after him.
Okay.
He's creeping up, man.
Yeah, I like him. I think I'm definitely a believer. I think that I would probably take other guys in that tier though, but I don't know. If that's the cost, I'm probably not gonna. I would probably take someone else.
Yeah, so this one's it's a little. He was QB 16 is probably the better way to say it because I was looking at the draft before and QB 16 was like mid 10th round. There was just this weird push at a bunch of quarterbacks being taken early.
Okay.
Basically, if you take McCall there, you're taking him over Castellanos, Cam Ward, Preston Stone, Rayner, Shador, Aguilar, and you're taking him. Like the guys that go right before him are like your Avery Johnson, Seth Hennigan, Arnold, Jefferson types. That probably feels about right. I mean, if you think about it, right, those Coastal Carolina years were just so good. Yeah. And would you say, obviously, Chadwell is a highly coveted offensive guy. Do you think like Anaya at NC State is comparable? In terms of getting production out of the guys that he has.
Yeah, I think it's fair.
So that would be I think that's the case. It's like, okay, they've got Concepcion, they've got a couple big recruits that have transferred over types, like there's enough skill guys around him. It's not like Bradley Rosner, RIP. What a move that was. So that I think that is the fight there.
Yeah, it makes total sense. The names that you were listing off before, I think are just a little more enticing. I think I would just go with some of them before I took McCall at the price of like the 8th round.
Let me ask you this: have you ever seen this Gillenborg tight end from Wyoming play, John Michael Gillenborg play? Because you just took him in the 22nd round. Why are you taking him?
Well,
why are you continuing to take him? You're the only guy that's taken him in these drafts.
So do you follow the fuck is the zip code? It's some Wyoming site that has a zip code in the name. Like it's not 90210, but it's something like that. All they do is put out puff pieces on Wyoming, but it's information about a G5 school, so I'm here for it, like anything is better than nothing, which is what a lot of what you get from a lot of these schools. So they had coach quotes about that dude, and the new coach said something. I'm sure I'm screwing up the quote slightly, but he said something along the lines of like, if we don't get the ball in Gillenborg's hands once every 3 plays, we're making a mistake. I was like, that's enough for me. I'm taking this guy in every draft. It's tight end, like 20th plus round, tight end 3 or 4, like fine. That's more than enough.
Speaking of tight end, I did something weird. I wanted your opinion on it, and I did it just to say I did it, as Drake would say back in the day. This is tight end premium 1-start leagues. Okay, guys, just for those that are unaware of this best ball draft style. I took Oronde Gadsden at 309, and I took Brant Kuithe at 404. They have different bye weeks. How do you feel about that decision?
Pretty good. So I'm taking a not too dissimilar approach in this draft, in the sense that like I took Salter in the 1st round and then Fannin in the 3rd, and with the idea being like, all right, I'm not investing much of anything in quarterback or tight end the rest of the draft, because if those guys don't play out, like my team's not doing well and it's over anyway. So like, let's just roll with it. But that's fun with Kuithe and Gadsden. The way the scoring works, right, is they'll get so it's premium in the sense that it's a PPR league, but double PPR for tight ends. They get the double PPR both within, if they navigate their way via best ball scoring, to the tight end slot or the flex spot, I believe. So like it makes sense. You could be good there.
I was hoping it was going to be Dalvin Smith because then I could at least have like
double Tito's.
Double Tito's. Yeah. Well, yeah. Because I wanted to, at the very least, I thought, well, Dalvin Smith, like I get some receiver eligibility out of it too. It's always helpful to have a second spot there, but it ultimately won't matter, right? Like if he plays well, Keithy does, then he would just be in the flex anyways. Like it's not like I need the extra spot, but I was like, oh, I mean, I like Dalvin Smith enough to have him over Keithy, but
you would have him over Keithy?
I think so. Yeah.
I don't think I would.
But I love Keithy, and this is the first time honestly, it was almost like I have a chance to get him, and I can't take him over Gadsden, but I have a chance to get him. I came to the conclusion that Keithy was too valuable too late, unfortunately, because then everybody was there to the party too.
Where are you on Fannin relative to all those guys?
I think Fannin's great. I mean, I think he's probably my 1 or 2. You're just kind of gonna sacrifice 3 to 4 weeks, but then you're going to get like insane production for the rest of the games. It probably helps. What is their quarterback situation? Tell me that guy that
they did the rare Mac thing where they brought a lot of guys back this year. They brought back both quarterbacks. So
that's the problem is Camden Orth. That is the problem.
Have you watched? You've watched.
I've watched. Of course I've watched.
It could be worse.
It could definitely be worse because Bazelak is serviceable. And maybe Orth just throws it to Fannin because he can't throw further than 5 yards. But
right. But he can complete a 5-yard pass, which is more than like some of those like QB2s who come in to run can do. Like he can he hit Teron Keith for lots of dump offs last year. I like it's bad, but it's like, and I think that it would be like really bad if he actually had to play a full game. But like within the construct of how they use him, like I think it's fine. Looking at their schedule, yeah, you're right. Like at A&M, at Penn State, like that's not great.
Yeah, but that's fine. I mean, last year he was great, and he had games against he played at Michigan. Like the weird thing for him last year was that like why did he only get 2 targets at Miami, Ohio when they lost by 4 touchdowns? Why did he only get 2 targets against Akron? I mean, they won by a lot, but like why are these 2 target games popping up? And then they started using him like a real threat that he is in the second half of the season. So I think the second half, I think everybody liked him before. And then the second half of the season, he was incredible. I don't know why he wouldn't continue to have that same type of second half in the matchups that are realistic.
Yeah, he's Mox's child. He basically has 4 bye weeks though, right? With weeks 2, 3, and 4, Penn State off at A&M, and then he's got a Maction off week or pre-Maction off week, if you will, November 2nd.
If I told you that, hey, he's going to be basically unplayable for 4 games, but 8 games he's going to be a top 5 tight end. Are you happy with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
I think so. I mean, you're telling me 8 weeks, I'm locked in. That's pretty great.
Yeah.
So, all right. Any final thoughts or topics you want to bring up before we wrap up? You looking at the show sheet that we created?
The show sheet, yeah.
Show sheet, yeah.
Yeah. No, I think this was good, bro.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad we could pump out another episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it all over the place. What would you expect out of us? Hopefully be here again next week. We have a short week. We have Memorial Day. You doing anything fun for Memorial Day, Andrew? You a big barbecue guy? Doing some burgers and hot dogs or what?
Dude, yeah. I mean, so we when we bought our house in 2016, the backyard, so it was new construction, but it was on a plot of land in Jersey City that was like a jungle before that. So the scumbag developer that built the house, the backyard remained a jungle. And when we initially had the house for the first 2 years and change, it remained a jungle. Like you couldn't go back there without risking getting some horrible bugs or something like you felt disgusting being back there. And then do you remember when I won a big-ish DFS tournament and a showdown in NFL, just throwing in a random entry?
It was Chiefs, wasn't it? Chiefs Colts.
Chiefs Colts. Yeah. I want Margaret to knit or crochet like the lineup into something to hang up, but like
that would actually be very cool.
It would be sick. Yeah. I had I captained Mahomes, of course, and then played. I was like, let's throw in Jacoby Brissett.
Didn't you throw in like a random Georgia receiver? It was the guy who always
I threw in
got hurt.
Primary Colts of Brissett, Marlon Mack, and T.Y. Hilton, I think, and then the two Chiefs that I had, I was like, the running game's kind of trash. Let's ignore that. Let's fade Kelce. Maybe he just won't go off that game. And I was like, well, Watkins is hurt. I think I can't remember. I guess Tyreek was around then, but he was hurt too. So let's play Mecole Hardman, Ugga Boy, and let's play Byron Pringle since Watkins is hurt.
Pringle was the guy I was thinking of.
The game starts, and I was reading like some comic books at the time. I'm not even watching the game, and I like following up my phone a little bit. I'm like, fuck, Watkins is playing. Immediately gets hurt, and he's hugely owned. And I'm like just following like the play-by-play on the score or whatever, and literally every single play is going to one of my guys. I'm like, holy shit. And like at halftime, I hit you guys up, and I was like, dude, I'm in first place in this tournament. And it kept like the furthest I ever fell was maybe like second or third at some point. And the fourth quarter, like I went into sports room where I am now and like flipped on the rest of the game, and like it got close and a little scary. But it's never even that sweaty. I think if Kelce needed like 3 to 4 more points on like a final drive, the Chiefs somehow lost this game. And that if he gotten like a couple more catches, I would have been screwed, but it was never even that scary. So won that bank, immediately like cashed it out, and I was like, let's like go to this fancy city landscaping place and like make our backyard amazing. So basically just drop that money on that. Backyard is sick now. Awesome. We don't use it as much as we should. But it's we've got like barbecuing set up back there. Every year I tell myself what I'm going to do is go back there after kids go to sleep, like just throw open, like stream a game and just get wasted and watch games back there. But I never make it out of my house to actually go do it. And
Nate, I think Nate does that. Franchise is what's that term?
A teetotaler?
What?
A teetotaler?
No, I was straight edged. Who's that Texas Rangers pitcher? Yeah, that's franchise. He's high off of life.
Yeah, teetotaler is a way of phrasing that as well. It means you don't like do anything. But it's like I don't know. It's got weird vibes associated with it, so I never really use it too much. But
only on franchise.
Yeah, I've thought about trying to build a tiki bar back there too, but I'm not handy. Like, can you imagine me doing anything?
Don't look at me. I am the opposite of handy. So
yeah, but yeah, backyard sick. Margaret always mans or woman's the grill, if you will. And then it's just me trying to make sure the kids don't like they'll let them take out all their energy and aggression on me and like jump on me and stuff. And then but it's great, dude.
You teetered towards Butker land there with that comment, so we might want to wrap this up before you get a little bit too Margaret in the kitchen.
The opposite. Can you imagine Butker admitting that a woman is working the grill at his house?
That's true. Yeah, that is true. I stand corrected. The grill, it's not the kitchen, it's the grill, so it's anti-Butker. You're correct.
Right.
Well, awesome. Well, I hope you enjoy it. Hope everybody enjoys it. We'll probably crank something out mid to late next week if we're able to do that. And then, we'll take it from there. Thanks everybody for listening.
Later.